Nadia here from Addicted Magazine, and I have the utmost pleasure today of speaking with Kinnie Starr. Say hello.
Hey, everybody.
Oh my goodness. It's an absolute pleasure to be speaking with you. You are an absolute icon in this industry, in a couple of industries, actually. Because
Thank you.
Let's talk about your start. How did you become an artist, and what art form really kind of launched you into your creative career?
Well, my interest in art making came kind of through music making came through the back door of illustration and graphic stuff. So I was discovering kind of where I was at as an artist. When I used to silk screen shirts for punk rock bands, and then I got into logo design and some graphic design and illustration, and then because of those were very solitary practices, I was constantly rapping when I was working. And so that's kind of how I started rapping, actually, was just because while I was working on design, I would constantly be, I don't know, just my mind was going off in freeform style. And once I started doing music, the first event that I did where I was just being myself as a poet / rapper type of artist, because I had a band that never went anywhere around that same time called BK Lounge, Biddies in the BK Lounge from De La Soul. So we had this band project, but it wasn't exactly a right fit for me. But the first time I kind of figured out what my thing was as an artist was at an event called the Blue Lizard Lounge in Vancouver. And I was doing poetry, and then I had a ghetto blaster on my shoulder, and I was rapping with it.
Oh my God.
And then I pulled my guitar out, but I was using my guitar like a bass, and kind of like a rhythm instrument. And so I did that performance, and I realized it had a totally different effect on the audience, and that it was totally different than drawing. Mm-hmm. And it was just a whole other form. And I could see that people appreciated it and got it. And that was the beginning of what that's how I became and entered the professional world of music making.
That's incredible. So many things there. First of all, there's the visual of you with your ghetto blaster and your guitar that you crafted into a bass. I love the creative arts, and I love so many things, but I am only good when it comes to words. So just me visualizing you taking so many pieces and making something is just awe-inspiring, because I can barely walk one foot in front of the other sometimes, I swear. That's incredible.
Well, I think sometimes people are I feel one of the things about being a creator or a creative person is and maybe it's the same in all business, but my business is in the creative arts, and I feel knowing where your role is, you're saying, I'm really good with words. Mm-hmm. And that's actually a skill in itself, to know what you're good at. So I would say that's actually a merit, to be no, this is what I'm good at. And in the case of how I work, it's I'm good at innovation and exploration. Mm-hmm. But that can also be a weakness, because throughout my whole career, people have and continue to say to me, they're you do too many things, or you're too many things. And so it's not always I feel it's positive for me, because I enjoy exploration, but from a business perspective, it's not that great.
I definitely feel you. I am of the same ilk, in that I definitely take too much on, and I do a lot of things. But I think that, number one, I love that you turned my self-deprecation into you finding a positive, and then went on to self-deprecate yourself, which is amazing. I think that you make a really good point, because the older I get, I definitely find that I say this a lot, where I'm I think I figured out what I'm good at, so I know what not to do now. Cooking, for instance. I'm terrible at cooking. I've tried millions of times to be a good cook, and I'm you know what? That's fine. I will order Uber Eats a lot, but I'm good at lots of other stuff, so I'll just figure out how to make money
totally.
and pay for it. But you know what? I think that that's a really important thing too, as a creative person, that you identified that part of your creative process is experimentation. So I will turn around and do you the same service that you just did to me and say that you, being a widely creative person, has, you know, led you to bless people like me with your gifts in multiple elements and multiple mediums and multiple ways in which you've been able to produce art. So, you know, while some may say that spreading yourself in a lot of different directions can be a detriment, I would, you know, venture to say that it's, you know, led to so much benefit for, you know, the world that has now received your art, that I think it's an amazing positive quality for sure. So you touched on this on my next question, which is great. Yeah. You've had a lot of evolution when it comes to yourself as an artist and yourself, you know, in terms of your career and how it spans. So how would you say, you know, from that inception of, you know, being a multi-instrumentalist, multimedia artist to, you know, where you are now, what does that evolution look like?
Well, like, I mean, I feel like I've grown in terms of my ability to trust my instincts. So, like, I operate exclusively from instinct as a musician, because I didn't grow up with training as a musician. So I knew that that was part of my skill set when I was first working in the industry, because I was around a lot of trained musicians and they were like, oh, and I kept saying, oh, I don't understand what you're talking about because I didn't go to music school. Should I go to music school? And they would be like, no, absolutely don't go to music school, because it will breed the thing that you have out of you. But it was always an insecurity of mine. Mm-hmm. So now, as an older musician and someone who's been in the industry for a long time, I've learned to accept that what I considered was a weakness is a strength. Sure. And it takes me, like, for instance, with new projects, like scoring Edge of the Knife, the film that I scored recently, I used that feeling inside me that used to be a lack of confidence. Mm-hmm. I used that feeling to, like, it's kind of like when you have a coin and it's like, it's the exact same thing, but you're looking at the other side of it. Mm-hmm. So I could feel that thing creeping up in me all the time of like, you're not good enough to do this. You can't do this. You don't know what that chord is. You don't know what that key signature means. All of the language of music that I lack. And I flip it over on its ass. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I kind of wrestle it inside my body, and I allow it to come out as what it is, which is instinct.
That's beautiful.
And yeah, like, I've just learned about myself. I'm like, I have good instincts. That's something that I have. And it's a skill set.
It is 100%. And it's a huge asset in terms of skill, you know, to not only realize, you know, the realization as well as the actual having of those good instincts. Because I think many of us, you know, you've identified a couple of things that I think specifically plagues, you know, may specifically plague female artists and female creatives in, you know, a similar way. Number one being imposter syndrome, which I personally suffer from a lot. And, you know, you explained it so well and in such a, like, visceral way, you know, like, not feeling that you're worthy, not feeling that you have, you know, recognizable skills, or, you know, whatever the case may be. And then the other side of it too, that you pointed out, is how so many of us don't follow our instincts, or, you know, to put it in one way, like that gut feeling that we may get. Yeah. And, you know, is that because we don't trust our instincts, or is that because we don't trust, you know, ourselves to, you know, even know that that's what our instincts are trying to tell us? Like, there's, you know, there's layers to that for sure. And I think that,
yeah, for sure,
you know, you setting a great example to especially, you know, younger female artists on the come up who, you know, are struggling with that very much now. And, you know, I think that that's something people will struggle with throughout their lives, but, you know, especially early on when there's so many, different factors to consider and different people trying to influence you. I think it's very important for artists and creatives in general to learn those two particular things, like learn to identify your imposter syndrome and learn to battle it within yourself, and then learn when it is that you need to trust yourself, because that's really going to be important.
Yeah. And there's another thing too about that insecurity thing is I've also learned to, I can see that like a lot of my life mission, I enjoy making other people feel good. Like that's one of the things that I really like when I'm alive. Like I like to smile at a stranger or like open the door for someone, just basics, right? But in art making and say, like in a situation, for instance, the show that I just played Interstellar Rodeo, which was an amazing experience in Edmonton. I could feel that insecurity thing creeping up in me. And now that I'm older, I recognize that thing is very narcissistic and very self-absorbed. And what it does is it fucks with the whole vibe in the room. If you come into the room, like when I was, like getting my feet on the floor as an artist, and that feeling would come up over me where I'm like, I'm not good enough. I don't know what this is. And I would get really moody and it would eat the energy in the room. And so now I understand that, and I can see it on other artists and especially younger artists, especially women, because we often don't feel like we belong because we're surrounded by men in the industry.
Right.
But it really sucks up the vibe in the room. So that's another reason why I've chosen to not feed that side of myself, is because it's kind of mean. Like
that's a really good way of looking at it. And I think that,
right?
I think it's funny that you say that. I was having, I feel like women especially have these conversations all the time where we kind of try to identify what is causing an action, because I think a lot of us know deep down that, it's never as simple as, cause A leads to reaction B. And so much insecurity drives, or so much bad behavior or mean-spirited behavior, to your point, is driven by insecurity. And
absolutely,
I think that it's so interesting and also very, that's a very high level of self-awareness for you to realize that your imposter syndrome, led to that, literal outpouring of negativity, especially when you're an artist on stage, like you're radiating out, and I think that that's a really, really very self-aware thing of you to realize about yourself, and a great lesson for sure to other artists out there.
Thank you. I feel really, I feel better when I operate from that position. And so, I just try and stay there. And it's not to say that I don't become like, self-absorbed sometimes and be like, come on, just tell me my gray hairs are okay. Someone tell me my gray hairs are okay. I get there too, but I just try and let it go. And I try and take those moments for myself more. Okay, if you want to be self-absorbed, go be self-absorbed and stare in the mirror and fucking like do your thing. But don't put it on other people, right?
And that's another great self-aware thing. And, I'm sure people around you are very grateful for that, which is awesome. Okay. So we talked a bit about how, you're a bit of a jack of all trades, or Jill of all trades, maybe, I guess I should say, when it comes to your creativity. Have you come to find more of a focus as your career has progressed, or are you still, kind of doing the bit of everything type thing?
I don't. No, I think I'm still exploring, like, I'm still exploring genres. I still am trying to, I'm still exploring for sure.
That's fantastic. And it's great to know too, as your career progresses, that exploration and that drive to explore is still there.
Yeah, I think it is.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I've got some projects, from scoring the film Edge of the Knife, it really reminded me of how much I like to make experimental music. And I have a little side project that I've started with this younger artist named Matthew Cardinal, and we have this project called Cardinal Starr, and it's just strictly exploratory improvisational sound. And, you know, when I started, we met each other and we made music. Like, we just sat down and started making music. We didn't even talk. And it was amazing. This beautiful piece. And then afterwards, these people came up to us and they were like, hey, how long have you guys worked together? Do you want to do this again? We're like, we just met, like, right now. So we actually, this film crew, they're called Digital Drum, and they do kind of artist profiles. So they put together a session where they filmed us, and they're going to present that work through their platform, Digital Drum. And wow. But it let me know how much I love experimental music. You know, both scoring the film and then working with in that project Cardinal Starr. I just think that that's like a whole other thing. It's something that I've always done, but I more got known through like rap music and pop music. Mm-hmm. But experimental music, I can see myself inhabiting that realm almost full time as I move forward. And because it's so much more interesting. Mm-hmm. I like arranging, like with pop and rap songs and stuff. I do like arranging and editing, but with experimental music, you fucking just open a floodgate and it's like all emotion and it's whatever's happening. Like when the light comes in through a cloud, you respond musically. Mm-hmm. Like literally, if with the way the room is lit will change how you create.
Wow.
And that to me is very interesting.
I mean, to me, even just hearing you talk about this, like, you know, again, I go back to what I said earlier, like it's wonderful to see that, you know, for someone who's done so many different things and experienced so many different things, that you still find that, you know, you're not jaded, that you're not, you know, you haven't seen everything and you're bored of everything. Like you still have you know, and that's so beautiful. Like you're still so inspired and you're still so, you know, like almost guileless about the whole thing. Like there's that sense of wonder remains, you know, despite everything you've accomplished. And, you know, I think that's also a wonderful thing. Like it, you know, it gives me hope, you know, for anybody who's creative, because you sometimes worry that, you know, when you turn your creative thing that you love into your work, that you lose that wonder and you lose that sense of wonder and you lose that joy of creation. And so to hear that, you know, someone like you who's literally made a career of creation, you know, still have that wonder in her voice is beautiful.
Thank you.
So, you know, I love that you touched on Edge of the Knife. So let's go to that, because I think that, you know, I definitely want to talk about the project. But before that, you know, you talked about what you did, which was the score and the, you know, the composition. So, you know, I think people understand what it is to be a musician. They understand what it is to create a soundtrack of songs. But I think that, you know, there's a little bit of a lack of understanding in the general music loving population of what it means to be a composer for film. So can you explain that a little bit?
Well, my experience with composing for film, I've only done I've composed for film twice in my career. I did this for a documentary called Here, There, and Everywhere, which was a film looking at the, like, why women remove their hair from their body and, like, all of the trends and stuff around that. And that was an interesting process, but it wasn't as interesting as scoring Edge of the Knife. And I think with film composition, one of the nicest things about it, especially if you've been an artist that is like front and center, where people are looking at you and
like
it becomes about you. Yeah. So that's a very uncomfortable position for some people. And I'm one of those people. It gives me bad dreams and makes my body feel really bad to be on stage where people are looking at me. But when composing for film, because you're composing for the action and being a part of the story arc, but you're supporting it, that is exactly where I want to be as a music creator, because you're looking at the story and you're like, how can I best support this story? And it's an incredible experience because, like, I mean, obviously my I'm not very developed in this field, but the process is very interesting for me because you have to be behind it, but you have to be giving enough that it's part of it. So it's this weird dichotomy where you're like, it has to exist, like the music has to exist, but it cannot overtake the story.
Right.
And that was that was the most interesting part of creating the music for Edge of the Knife. And I feel like I hit my mark because I've had a few people, like high level movie makers and like set designers and people like that who have come up to me and said like, oh, you're the person who scored that. I loved the fact that the score didn't overtake the narrative, and that was my goal.
And that's beautiful. And I think that also kind of mirrors what you were just saying about, you know, as an artist, not wanting to be, you know, that kind of front and center.
Yes.
You know, and I think that, you know, that was something you personally struggled with and we're trying to figure out how to accomplish. And all of a sudden, you know, you found the niche that requires exactly that. And then, you know, you were like, here I am, like, you know, it's my time to shine. And you were able to.
Totally. Yeah, it's a really good fit for me because even though I'm primarily known as a front person, but, you know, I am more interested in composition and writing and, I'm more interested in creation than performance. So, I mean, that's like the dark side of the music industry is that especially as a woman, it's just expected of you that like you want everybody to be looking at you. And it's like, that's not
everyone's sensation by any means.
Yeah. It's not that interesting of like, okay, what am I going to wear on stage? Yeah. Like, I know that a lot of people do appreciate the fashion and I know that it's important, but it's just not exactly the perfect fit for me as an artist.
Well, and I think, you know, that goes back to what we were saying at the top of the conversation where it's important to figure out, you know, what you're good at and what you're not. But in the same vein, it's also important to figure out what you like and what you don't. And, you know, if there's one philosophy I try to embrace in life, it's, you know, do the things that feel good and stop doing the things that don't. So finding that identification is really key. Okay, so with regards to Edge of the Knife, I definitely want to talk more about this because it's a very unique project and a very important project. But I want to hear it in your words. What makes this film so special and so important?
You know, this film is really interesting because when we were so my husband is the director and there's two directors, Guy Edenshaw and Helen Haig Brown, and then the writing team. There was more. It was Guy and his brother and Graham Brown, and an Italian woman who were involved with the script making. And Asuma TV is the producer and broadcaster, I believe. And when that film was being worked on, like, and workshopped in its earlier stages, there was, you know, the filmmakers understood that this was going to be a language film and it was going to be all in the Haida language. And, we didn't at any point, imagine that people were going to be interested in the film. And so that's been the most surprising element is because it's a language film and it's in Haida language. It's in like the southern, like the Skidegate dialect and the northern Masset dialect. So there was a lot of study done and a lot of, like boot camps done where they took the actors that are non-speaking. So there's, up there in the north, a lot of people have sort of like peppered language. Like they have like some vocabulary, but, the grammar and everything and the fluency is lacking on some levels. And so it was really cool because creating the film, they had boot camps where the actors had to learn the language and how to emote in their language. And so it was kind of like the incentive of the film was to put forward a real language immersion experience and to use the film in as educational tools, like, you know, so there's, say, 6 hours of footage. The film only is like 90 minutes, I think.
Right.
But then there's all this other footage that is currently being made into little education modules.
Wow.
So what we thought as creators in the film, even though I came in later in the film, but the goal was just to create a language film, so to have like narrative components that people could listen to learn their language.
Mm-hmm. Well, because
so it's been this
sorry to
crazy.
But like this was a language, just to give more clarity here, that like this is a language in danger of extinction, correct? Like that there's very few people that still speak it, and it's in danger of dying out.
Yeah, there's problems with language in like all of our communities. Like there's in the Haida community, which is not my nation, there's a lot of fluent speakers are dying, and there are some fluent speakers and some younger people, but the goal, I think, is to revive the language. Mm-hmm. But it's unfair to say that there are, like, a lot of the story spin on the movie is like, a lot of headlines are like only 20 speakers. Mm-hmm. But that's not really true, because a lot of people use like just vocabulary in their day to day.
Right.
So it's more accurate to say that there are a lot of novice speakers.
But we're potentially losing that fluency.
Yeah.
Because the fluent speakers are the ones that we're in danger of losing, literally just due to aging at this point.
Yes, exactly.
And I think that, you know, especially when talking, you know, Indigenous issues are in the forefront right now. And I think that, you know, for non-Indigenous speaker or people and non-Indigenous Canadians, that, you know, we understand, you know, that there are issues in a general sense, but I think that it's very important too, that, you know, to get granular when it comes to, you know, the different communities. You know, you touch on that this, while this may not be your particular community or your, you know, your particular nation that you identify with, you still, as a person coming from an Indigenous background, see the importance of it, you know, whereas the rest of us, you know, we don't have an understanding. We don't know, because these aren't things that are discussed on this granular level with us. So I think that it's very important for films like this to be made. And I think it's wonderful too, that in undertaking the creation of this film, you know, there's this other, you know, obviously the whole project is kind of a, you know, a mission in preservation, but there's this, you know,
absolutely,
preservation via education component. So it's not just, you know, hey, we've made this movie of people speaking, you know, this language, it will live on in perpetuity, but hey, let's also take the hard work that we've done and not only preserve, but also help it thrive and encourage new speakers to undertake it. And, you know, was that the intention from the beginning, to create those kind of two concurrent projects?
That was like the goal from the outset. But the thing that was the most interesting about this film is how well received it's been. Mm-hmm. So that has taken everybody, like nobody expected that.
And so when you say that, like what has surprised you the most about the reception the film has received?
Well, like there's like blocks, like when the film first came out, and like Viv and Tiff and stuff, there was like lineups, like 5 blocks.
Wow.
Like a lineup 5 blocks deep to see the film over and over and over and over and over. Like not just one screening, like screening after screening after screening, and then a new showing, 5 screenings, and then 7 more added. And like it just was this, it's just so well received. And I just find it so surprising, because I think at a different time, like, because we're in a time where there is the media, at least on the surface, there is more interest in Indigenous culture. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that is an equation that's going to last.
Yeah.
But right now it's a good time. Like if this film would have come out 5 years ago, it would not have had the reception that it has.
And I, you know, that there's tragedy in that in its own way. And
absolutely.
I think, you know, there's definitely something to be examined about, you know, whether there's some sort of tokenism at play here. But I think that, you know,
Exactly.
I love the way that you're looking at it like a positive, you know, like that regardless of what it is, the outcome is that people are talking about this film and seeing this film, you know, it sounds like in droves.
Yes.
And, you know, like the stories coming out. Do you think that this will pave the way for more Indigenous stories to be told and for, you know, to take the opportunity to educate non-Indigenous peoples to the reality of what Indigenous people
I don't really know, and I'm quite bitter about the way, like, I've the way media works, and it is different because of the internet now, but I do find that the media just kind of moves in trends. Mm-hmm. And so I don't really have a lot of faith in the Canadian and international public that it's going to be this lasting interest in Indigenous health and well-being. And maybe that's just because I'm a bitch, or maybe it's because I'm jaded, or maybe it's because I'm old enough to have seen like little swells where all of a sudden it's okay to be female in this industry and then it's gone. Like, for instance, an example is the Lilith Fair.
Yeah.
Like when we first witnessed as women, when we first were, or as probably men too, were witnessing the emergence and the success of the Lilith Festival brand, mm-hmm. It was this, you know, everybody was like, it's women's time in music and everybody cares about women. Don't you see? We really care. Mm-hmm. And then, you know, by the third summer, no tickets were selling.
Yeah. And, you know,
so that's what I feel is happening in terms of the emergence of more Indigenous stories, and people are kind of like, you know, white people just like putting their ear like, what's that you say? Mm-hmm. A real live Indian? You know, like, I feel like it's the same fucking bullshit.
Yeah.
And maybe, like I say, I know I'm a bitch about this shit, but I, you know, whenever people say, well, it's a different time, I'm like, you know what? Give it 20 fucking years. If in 20 fucking years people still care about Native people, then you can tell me it's a different time.
And you know what? I don't think you're being a bitch or bitter about this at all. I think that you being passionate on the subject is by way of your lived experience, and it's completely valid. And, you know, I actually, it's funny that you bring up Lilith Fair, because I was thinking the exact same thing the other day. I was like, you know, everyone was cool with ladies in the biz a few years ago. Like, what happened? Like, is now the time to bring Lilith Fair back? Like, I don't know. Like, I find I'm still having the same arguments when it comes to female representation, when it comes to music and film and all that. And, you know, my favorite thing to say is that I hope, you know, say when my friends' kids get to be a certain age or whatever, that no one will talk about gender and no one will talk about color, because we'll all finally be equal.
Agreed.
But who knows? You know, to your point, let's wait 20 years and see if any of that matters.
Yeah.
So I'm with you. If thinking that way makes us bitches and bitter, then so be it. But
that's
I think
fine.
it makes the rest of the world kind of bullshit is what it is. And we're just
exactly. Exactly.
And you know what? Now that we've touched on gender, I think that, you know, we can talk about another very cool film project that you are a part of in a different capacity. Let's talk about Play Your Gender. So
sure.
Tell me about, this was a film that was released a couple years ago, 2016, I believe. I've had the pleasure of seeing it. It was very cool, filled with a lot of great female and other voices. But again, in your words, tell us about Play Your Gender and what it meant to you to be part of that project.
Yeah, Play Your Gender originated as in a different context. So, the NFB came to me and asked me if a director from the NFB, who shall remain nameless, came to me and asked me if I would be interested in doing a Kinnie Starr documentary on my career and everything. And it made me want to feel like puking. Like, I was like, there's not a chance in hell that I would want cameras around me and me blabbing about myself. But
for like ages too. That stuff doesn't go quick.
That?
Like for a long time. Like you would be like talking to people and be followed around for a while.
Oh yeah, like I'm a very private person, and and there's a lot of problems. Like my family is riddled with addiction, and I was like, there's no way I want cameras sniffing around my family. Mm-hmm. We have such struggles, and I just didn't want to have to expose my parents and everything, and expose And also just it just felt like heavily narcissistic to be like, yeah, Kinnie Starr film, it'll be fucking great. Like it was like, no, I don't want to do that, but I am very interested in society. So I pitched back to them and I said, let's actually talk about women in the entertainment industry and find an angle. And then we started developing an angle, and then the two heads of the project were found to be, they got fired from the NFB. So the project got dropped and it got moved to a different area of exploration, and then a different director and producer, who are the people that the project went forward with. And so I just really wanted to look at women in production. And so that research started in earnest in 2011. Mm-hmm. And so we researched for about 3 years and then filmed it and then edited it. So it was about a 5-year process. Wow. And yeah, I really wanted to look at production because I've always produced my own stuff. I mean, I've obviously always had a team and people I rely on, but I wanted to really showcase women in production and authorship, because a lot of people, when they enter the industry, especially women, we are very conditioned to feel like I need to be the front person. Mm-hmm. I need to be pretty. I need to look good on camera. Mm-hmm. I need to be popular. I need to be, know what my angles are. What's your best side of your face? All that bullshit.
Yeah.
That's like the doorway in, like, and because I teach kids all the time, I have the same questions asked to me all the time, which is, how do I get famous? How do I brand myself? Right. And so I really wanted to make a film about producing and writing, right? Because producing allows you as a woman in my business. Producing means your vision is met, because you are taking that project from inception into the public. So you have the whole vision, and maybe you're a beat maker too. Like I make beats and stuff, but you know how to get it from the beginning to the end. And then authorship is important, because the bulk of pop music that we listen to, and that all of the little girls and boys who are listening to, it's fucking all written by dudes. On pop.
Yeah.
I mean, not all, but
a lot
like
of
80%.
it. Yeah.
So that's why I wanted to make that film.
That's incredible. So, tell us about how, with Play Your Gender, like, what was that like in terms of, because you were behind the scenes as well as in front of the camera, and, historically that's not something that you love, is being in the spotlight. So what was that like, kind of towing that line? Because, you also put other people in the spotlight too, because you did a lot of interviews, you talked to a lot of really incredible women in the music industry. So you wore a lot of hats, and you had to put yourself on display and put others on display. So what was all that like?
Yeah, well, it was cool. Like, I do feel, now that I've made that film, I feel like I could quit music tomorrow and have contributed properly to society.
Wow. That's incredible.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Because it's like, it was like, I get a lot of power from watching other people feel powerful. Right? It's just a thing. I like it. Like, when I was a little girl, I liked standing up for the kid who was getting kicked around. It's kind of part of my nature. Yeah. And so with that film, it just felt so, like, it just felt so good to fucking make, because, I've been in the music industry for a long time, where it's like, Kinnie Starr, what is your brand? And like, don't you want to promote yourself? And don't you want to this? And it's like, it just feels so tired. So with that film, it was like an opportunity to showcase all these women.
Yeah.
So it felt really like, oh, thank fuck. Like, I can make my own way in this industry. It doesn't always just have to be like, no, I'm in a really pretty outfit. Here's my Instagram. Like, it just, right? Like, absolutely. It has to be more.
And, I love that you put it that way too, because, number one, I like, the reason why I like doing interviews just like this one and, talking on panels is because I love getting other people to share their stories and hearing other people's stories. And I just love discussion, and I love hearing about like the cool shit people do, and you know, like that, that's why I love what I do. And you know, I love that, you know, you turned how much you hated like other people asking you what your brand was and why you do what you do into asking other people why they do what they do in a movie. Was that like the ultimate vindication for you, or were you like kind to everyone else knowing that they may not like being in that position?
Well, like a lot of people turned us down. Like I tried to get interviews with some like people that were like, they didn't want to do that because a lot of people don't like to be on camera.
Of course.
And then interestingly, a lot of like, I had some very powerful men lined up for interviews. And then when we did our pre-interviews, like before they went on camera and they found out it was a feminist film, they were no-shows.
No.
Isn't that interesting? They just fucking bailed and didn't even show up.
They ghosted you.
They ghosted us. And we would be like sitting around waiting for them to show, and we could see them on their Instagram doing selfies in the park, like uploading, like, and they'd be fucking blocked away, and they just like fail.
Wow. Oh my God. You're a kind soul.
Very interesting.
You're a kind soul, not to just name and shame all of them.
Yeah. No, I can't. I wouldn't name their names, but it was pretty shocking to me. I was like, really, dude? Because I'm betting you've got a sister or a mom or a niece.
Or, you know what, female fans of your music, you know, like, they're not going to want to know that, you know, their idol was anti-feminist. Like, that's literally why I didn't want to come make the movie. Anyway. Yeah. That's stupid. That's all I have to say about that.
It was dumb.
So dumb. So, on to things that are not dumb. What are you working on these days? Because that could never be done.
Yeah, right now I am... I'm just about to, I did a series of illustrations that went up for the Queer Arts Festival here in Vancouver. So like my background is in illustration and, so it was really nice to be asked to draw. So I was commissioned to do some drawings on liminality. And so I really relate to, I love the word liminality, and I really relate to being someone that is kind of between spaces, because that's like a place where I kind of inhabit. And so I did a series of illustrations. There's 6 drawings on being in between spaces. And then the next phase of that project is those drawings are going up in the transit stations in Vancouver.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I'm working on that, like launching that project. And then I have a film script that is dormant, that it's not finished, like it's not a written project that I can present yet, but I have a director and an actor that I'm writing for, and a director that is interested in working with me on this project. So I hope to be starting this film project within a year or two is probably realistic.
That's incredible.
And yeah, and then I'm just working on more experimental music and producing. I've been doing a lot of co-writing for other artists. So writing with like Jasmine Netsana and Janet Panic, Kaylee Cardinal. And so I've really been stretching my wings as an editor and an arranger and producer for other women.
That's incredible.
And yeah.
Do you exclusively tend to work with women, or does that happen like more naturally that you gravitate working towards female identifying people more?
You know, it's just that guys never ask me to.
That's so blunt. I love it.
I've never had a guy ask me to produce or write for him or with him.
I mean,
other than I have a person that I wrote with on my record who was, cause I had a brain injury for a few years and it made everything really, really hard and my body was injured. And so I had a collaborator at that time who was a man that was hired by my record label to help me, but I've never had a male artist come to me and be like, yo, can you produce me and write with me? And I don't know what it is. I'm like, maybe guys just don't think girls can do it. I don't know.
Who knows? Is there a male artist out there that you wish would ask you? Like, put it out there.
Like,
who's your dream artist to work with, male or female, actually?
Well, I actually really want to do top lining for pop artists.
Ooh.
And
what does that mean? I've never heard that before.
Yeah, top lining is like when you basically they stick a bunch of people in a room together with a big bag of weed and a bunch of booze, and they just play like
and just
hooks,
see what happens.
And you just everybody in the room tries to come up with hooks, and that's how like most pop is written right now.
Yeah.
And so that's why when you look at a Beyonce song, you see like 50 writers on a song. That's because those are top liners.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah, and because I'm good at hooks, but like for my type of music is more narrative. Yeah. So I don't really write like strictly pop, but I do come up with a lot of pop hooks like in my day-to-day life. So that's actually something I'd really like to do, is to write, to be a top liner.
That just sounds like a really cool experience. Like, can I just come with you when you get invited on one of those? Like, I'll roll the joints, or I'll make the coffee or something.
Okay, we're in.
I'm so excited. That's so cool. Okay, so being someone who's made an entire career of being creative, what advice would you have for, a budding artist, or, someone who loves to write but doesn't know if they can make a career out of it? Like, what would you wish someone had said to you when you were coming up all those years ago?
Well, I will answer that question the way I answer that question when I'm working with emerging artists. Mm-hmm. And I always say the same thing, which is work on your craft. Mm-hmm. You have to get better at what you do. Mm-hmm. Because usually I find new artists, generally their first questions are like about branding and marketability. Mm-hmm. And I feel like it's more important. What's that?
Like about the business and not the craft.
Yeah. Yeah. People want to know about the business, but I feel like it's more important to have a strong catalog of content and to work on your craft, like work on arranging, work on your skills, work on your singing. Also, another thing I always say to people is practice self-discipline around health. Yeah. And I feel like that's really important. And I've watched a lot of artists leave the industry because of that. And so I really encourage people to make sure they exercise almost every day. And if you're going to use like sugar and alcohol and drugs and things like that are hard on your body, you have to be very disciplined and not use them regularly.
I think that's a really good point. I think that, in this day and age, the discussion on mental health is at more of the forefront. But I think that, one segment of the population we very much leave out of that conversation happens to be creatives, especially musicians. And I think that it's so important for someone like you who's been successful and who's done a lot of different things when it comes to being creative. And an important lesson for you that you want to pass on is that self-care, take care of your mind, take care of your body lesson. And I hope that budding artists and, artists who are established even take that to heart, and that everyone should listen to that, because, I think that people definitely put their minds and bodies second to their work. And I know that there's a lot of negative influences when it comes to creative industries, especially when you're a successful artist and there's a lot of people out there making money on you. And we've heard lots of recent tragedies around that. So I thank you very much for sharing that. I think that's important.
And I really feel like our mental health is improved by our physical well-being.
Absolutely.
So because there's so many people that struggle with mental health issues in all sectors of society, but especially in the creative arts, I never can stress enough when I'm working with young artists, or emerging artists, I'm like, you won't be able to keep doing this if you don't take care of yourself, or you'll die.
Yeah. Literally.
Or you'll be,
in a lot of
or
cases.
You won't, you have to, it's your body. It's the thing that you use to make the things you want to make.
And your body is your ultimate tool, especially as a creative and as an artist. So I think that that's a really important point. So maybe to end off on a lighter note, you know, in this same thread, because I feel like all of us have kind of silly, you know, or lighthearted self-care things that we do, you know, those things that recharge our hearts and our souls. Is there something like, what do you recommend when it comes to self-care, you know, that you like to do that some people, you know, may not realize is self-care, that, you know, just brings you joy and just makes you feel better about the world?
Well, I'm a loner, but I feel like more people are loners than they know. Mm-hmm. And so I get my strength from being alone in nature. So I moved out of cities 15 years ago, and I've just never gone back. Like, I'll go to a city if I have to work, but I don't live in cities anymore.
Right.
And, but not everybody's able to do that because maybe they have their kids or their family or they're working in the city. But I strongly recommend spending time alone.
Yeah.
And if you have time alone, like, especially if you're a mom or a dad, you have your kids with you and you've got that half an hour, don't get on your fucking phone.
Yeah. Go outside, be in nature.
Right? Yeah. So, I mean, I sound so Pollyanna, but I do think it is a very big help.
Oh my God, I agree. Being alone is one of my favorite things. I grew up in a big family, and I feel like that's why. Like, alone time was so valuable when I was growing up, and now that I can get it for myself, it's truly one of the most valuable resources out there. And
yeah, it just feels so amazing.
It does. It's so recharging, and I love that. I feel that you and I would get along super well, so I'm very excited for us to write songs for Rihanna. While you will write songs, I will roll joints, because that's what I'm good at. Thank you very much, Kinnie Starr, for taking the time to chat with me today. I really appreciate it. You are amazing, and you're an inspiration.